Now let's continue looking at Visual Studio, and in this video, which is entitled Visual Studio Part 2, which by the way follows Part 1, for those of you who are somewhat confused easily, let's continue to talk about this environment. Now we're going to code C# in here, so you'll have to be a little bit familiar with Visual Studio. Now notice that we're clicking on the form and we're clicking on the button here, but we need to see properties on this and they're not there. If you go to the View option on the main menu bar up here, or on the main menu, if I click on View, you'll notice that I can come down and choose the Properties window, and if I click that, and there's a nice Control WP and so forth. But if I just click on it here, this will bring up the Properties window, and this will let me look at the design time properties that I can set on the button. So if I want to change the text of the button from button 1 to click, that's all I have to do, and notice that changed that. Now in using this, let me show you real quickly, we can change these to where they're categorized, which is what we see here, by behavior, data, that sort of thing. We can alphabetize them A to Z, which is what I tend to like because I've gotten used to learning these things. And then if you look over here, we can just put it on properties. We can look at just events. Okay, so we can do a lot of stuff here, and I generally set them on alphabetical. Totally up to you however you want to do these. Okay. Now, something else that I just want to show you real quickly, if I've got a number of buttons, let's put a combo box on here and let's put a list box on here. In my properties window over here, I can click on each one of these and you'll notice I'm jumping to it right here, and I'm going to click right here so you can see it. But notice if I click the drop down, I can easily pick any one of the objects that I have here that I want to program against. Okay, and you'll also notice that as I move things around in here, that it'll automatically draw these blue lines and try to align everybody for me. So I can do some neat stuff with this, okay? But now let's talk about some other things that we might want to look at. Let's go back to the View menu, and you'll notice I can see the Server Explorer, and I can turn that on, and that will come over on the left side over here, and I will auto hide that. You'll notice that I can mouse over Server Explorer or Toolbox. And Server Explorer, we can look at database connections. We can go out and look at the server that we're installed on and see some things. And again, this is not a Visual Studio course. I just want to get you comfortable and happy here. And then we'll look at some others right quick. There's an error list window that we can see that will pop up automatically. If you don't see it now, we'll let that auto hide. We'll go back and we'll look at the output window down here. And when we start to build our applications, we'll see things down there. And any window that you want to see, just click on View and you can see all the windows, and then you will notice there is another Windows or Other Windows section that you can see some other things. So that's how to find any of these windows. If I accidentally turn this thing off, all I have to do is come back up here and View Properties and turn it back on. I want to show you one thing real quickly. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. This is shameless marketing. I did a course on Visual Studio 2008. It's an entire, I think, 7 hours on this whole Visual Studio environment, and I would strongly suggest you take a look at that if you're not familiar with Visual Studio. Now, end of shameless marketing. But the reason I mentioned that is, notice I can grab this properties box and pull it off and it'll float, and I can float it all over the place. Notice I can put it at the bottom of the screen, and now my properties are down here, and I can auto hide it. Well, I don't like that. So what I have to do is pin it back, then I can click on the title bar and I can drag it around and I can put it back over here where I had it. But notice that's going to put it on the side. This is going to put it inside that window on the bottom. It's very easy to get lost and confused with those. So just know you can drag them around. We'll forget about that. Go get the Visual Studio video. My wife and my child and my banker thanks you. And also VTC thanks you, by the way. So anyway, that's docking these windows and so forth. Up here is the toolbar. Now there are two types of people in the world that use computers, and that's those who love these toolbars and those who really don't even know they exist. And I would strongly encourage you to watch these things. And if you'll click on View and come down to Toolbars, you will notice you have quite a few toolbars that you can drop on up there and start to do all kind of really cool things with. There's the formatting toolbar. We'll turn that on, and with that, whenever it's appropriate. Notice we can set fonts, bold, underline, and so forth. Notice on some of these we can click the little drop down over here and get more functionalities for these toolbars. So all I'll tell you with, and I'll just leave you with this on toolbars, go out there and look at these toolbars, open some up, and play with them. Because there's some really cool stuff. You'll notice database diagram and data diagram and so forth. There's some really cool toolbar things you can do. Just familiarize yourself with those things. Now, one last thing I want to show you, there's actually a bunch of things, but we'll just kind of stop right here, is on these windows that pop up, they're depending on your system, the speed with which they pop up can be changed, and I want to show you this. If you go to Tools and go down to Options, you will notice there's a lot of options that you can set in Visual Studio. And again, shameless marketing, go get the Visual Studio video. But if these things are popping up too fast or too slow, and I'll just do an exaggerated example, notice on the Environment General tab I can change the speed of that, and now this opens slower. So I can go out to Tools, Options, and I can slow that all the way down. And so if you're getting paid by the hour, you might want to slow that thing down, right? Just kidding. If your particular machine's driving you nuts, and for those of you who are particularly impatient, grab that thing, pull it all the way to there, and then this thing's just going to pop up and you can see it. So anyway, a lot's going on in Visual Studio. Go out there and look at it, play with it. Again, I'm not trying to do shameless marketing, but there is a 7-hour course on Visual Studio. If you're totally new to it and confused, there's a lot of power here. With that, we'll cover just a couple more things about Visual Studio here to show you how to use it in correlation with the C# programming environment, and then we'll jump into C#.